Greetings, everyone. I am very excited to be back in conversation again today with Natasha Kealoha, and we're going to be talking about the four royal stars and their meaning for us in the past and in this time. But before we begin, let me just give a little bit of your background.
Okay.
I love that you refer to yourself as a cosmic navigator. And really, you are an astrologer. You're very into astronomy. You integrate your Polynesian ancestry, but I really see you as having a very unique perspective on astrology, on the stars, and how they can be guiding us in this time of transition and transformation. And as a cosmic navigator, helping us not to get caught in the storminess of these times, but to find our path. So thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Heather. And as I was saying before we got on the call, I'm just so honored to be back in conversation with you and to dive into these really powerful stars and constellations today.
Wonderful. I don't know if you'd want to start with this, but I'd love for you to share the dream that you had.
Oh, yes. Okay. So just a little context. So today we'll be, like as you said, we'll be talking about what's considered the four royal stars. And the four royal stars are Aldebaran in Taurus, Antares in Scorpius, oh no, Fomalhaut, right? Okay, in Pisces, Austrinus, and then Regulus in Leo. And these stars and these constellations have been important throughout time and globally throughout cultures. And they're also linked to the cardinal directions as well in cultures as well. So when you had reached out to me and invited me to have this conversation about these stars, I went to bed after you had emailed me, and I went to sleep that night, and then I had this dream about these stars. And what I saw, what it was so vivid, because I can see it right now too, is that I saw the Earth from space, and essentially these four stars were highlighting the four directions outside of Earth. So it essentially, this turned into a medicine wheel. And these four stars, as we'll get into today, are really deeply connected, not only to the directions on Earth, but also deeply connected into the cosmos in really powerful ways. And so I see these stars as like gateways into the greater cosmos. But what the stream was showing me was that this is all key. The big key here is to come back to center and come back to Earth. Even though we do have access to these huge cosmic energies, coming back to center is how we start to integrate and work with this information that these stars are offering.
Beautiful. And it's when we come back to center that we come back to our wholeness,
Yes.
and then can be integrated with the oneness of all that is.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, so should we just start with, should I share actually a slide really quickly just to orient? Okay, so let me bring up, share. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just to, okay, so the four royal stars are in very powerful, potent constellations. And so I just brought up this image just to show you which constellations we'll be focusing on today. And so we'll be focusing on Aldebaran and Taurus. And then, interestingly, Fomalhaut, oh my goodness, I keep mispronouncing it, is not on the ecliptic in one of the zodiacal constellations, but we'll be getting into that in a moment. But it's connected to the Aquarius constellation. And then also Antares in Scorpius, and then Regulus in Leo. So we're really focusing on this really powerful angles of the sky. And so how that was actually just what I was going to show this time. And then is it okay if I exit out of the, okay. Share. Okay. So the first star, I guess we'll jump into is the one in Taurus. And today, what I really wanted to focus on, what I really would love to bring into this conversation is the Polynesian aspect of looking at these stars. So I do have a deep respect and deep reverence for Polynesian culture and also just Pacific Island culture, because their ancestors are ancient navigators, and they were able to navigate thousands of miles of open ocean without the modern instrumentation. So it was based on their skillful technique of knowing how to, be in a canoe, but also their powerful observations of nature and their connections to nature itself, that they're able to navigate to these little pinpoints of land spread out through the Pacific Ocean. And so today, what I would love to do is offer Polynesian names for these four royal stars. And so we'll be kind of taking a tour through Polynesia a bit. So we'll be heavily focused on a lot of the Hawaiian names for these stars because Hawaii has been pivotal in this resurrection and also this renaissance really of wayfinding in Polynesia. And we do have to honor too that this resurgence of wayfinding was really aided by our cousins in Micronesia. It was a master wayfinder in Micronesia named Maupiai Lug who came to Hawaii to train the navigators that we see now. He was able to pass on his knowledge, and then that way we could experience wayfinding again in Polynesia. So we'll be going through some of the names in Hawaiian and then also a few other names that I thought was really fascinating throughout, like through some other different Polynesian islands as well. And I loved some of these names because it showed a deeper meaning, or I thought it added more meaning to these stars that have been pivotal in a lot of the history of ancient cultures. So we'll start off with Taurus and Aldebaran, if that's okay. So Aldebaran and Taurus was associated with the direction east, I believe. So it was considered the guardian of the east or the watcher of the east. And the translation of Aldebaran in Arabic is the follower. At least that's what it was cited online. And I think it was called the follower because it follows the rising of the Pleiades, I think was its association. But Aldebaran is so fascinating because it's the eye of the bull. It's like this really bright red star, if you look at it in the night sky, that highlights the eyes. And I think the eyes is so important here, even just the symbolism of this. And so I would love to bring in the Hawaiian name for Aldebaran, which is Kapuahi. And Kapuahi is interesting because it's the Hawaiian word for stove or fireplace. But if you actually look up the two words that actually make up kapuahi on their own, it adds a deeper meaning. So kapu means taboo or sacred, and ahi means fire. And so together, it's sacred fire is the name of Aldebaran. And I loved that it was connected to the direction east because there's this, even this association with east and fire of like, be starting new beginnings of like, starting a new day. And also I loved that it changed the frequency almost of the name Aldebaran as the follower. So like it's just associated, the star is kind of just associated with other constellations around it, and it doesn't have its own identity almost with this particular name. But when we bring in Kapuahi, it brings in your own sacred fire. It brings in your individuality, your spark, your creative energy into this particular star.
What's interesting about that too is, the Persians were the ones that originally labeled the royal stars, but then they had such symbolism and meaning across different cultures across time. But one of the profound symbolic meanings of that royal star is courage, living with integrity.
Wow.
So it's interesting that that really fits with honoring the sacred inner fires, being in alignment with your soul self, and really following that path.
Yes. And I love that it's associated with the eye of the bull as well. So even just envisioning like where your creations are coming from are connected to your own individual spark and your own creativity. And I'll actually bring in another name that was that's found in Polynesia. It's actually from the Cook Islands, which is islands in the South Pacific. And their name for Aldebaran is Almea. And in this lovely book that I have called Na'i Noa Hoku, Hawaiian and Pacific Star Names, I can't recommend this book enough. It's written by two Hawaiian scholars and then a British archaeoastronomer. So they compiled all of these star names throughout the Pacific Islands and throughout Hawaii as well. And it's just There's so much information in this book. And so what the scholars realized was Haumea, it sounded like the name for the Hawaiian goddess Haumea. And Haumea is the Hawaiian goddess of Mother Earth, of fertility, of childbirth. And
Mhm.
also there is a planet in the Kuiper Belt, I believe, named Haumea. And what I loved about this too is this is also connecting this particular star in Taurus to birth and to creation. And then also Haumea, it was interesting. So I've been really feeling into my own translations of Haumea. And what I've realized when working with her, because I've been tapping into her energy for years now, but it's been pretty quiet on what the downloads that I normally receive really quickly from other planetary bodies. This one's been really slow to come up. And I realized that it's in the slowness that's part of her translation for me. And so this is about taking your time to create with integrity, to create whatever it is that you're creating with sacredness, and coming back into what am I creating? And is it connected to the sacredness of life? And I'm actually going to bring in a beautiful conversation I had with Brother Keoni. I asked him what Haumea represents. And he said Haumea represents replication. And when he told me that, I was like, oh man. I started thinking it because at this point, when we were having this conversation, it was really much like a lot in like a fear like picture. I was moving through a lot of like Dark Knight stuff. And so I was like, oh man, what am I replicating? Like, am I just replicating this patterns of stress and crisis and just keep going down in this perpetual loop of overwhelm? Or do I get to actually start to wake up and remember that I can shift this? And whatever it is that I am replicating, may it be in reverence to what is actually sacred and coming it back into, yeah, the sacred fire of it all.
And that's beautiful because the other energy that I really associate with Haumea is regeneration.
Mm,
He was able to bring in new life as the people were in crisis.
mm,
So
mhm.
the way in which this is the energy of what are we creating and bringing into form that is regenerating to ourselves, to each other, to the earth.
Yeah. And I love too that that her energy is reminding us that we can slow down and that we don't have to rush or be in urgency and when we're creating things because we can feel really like especially in the times that we're in that things are moving at rapid pace. But really I feel like she's also showing us that we have all the time in the world and really coming back to center because that's going to be a main theme about with our conversation. So when we actually come back to center, we realize just how much time we do actually have to breathe and to come into stillness and to come into the sacred pause so that we can remember who we truly are. And I feel like that's what these four stars are really bringing into to our awareness is to remember who we are.
Beautiful.
Okay, and then also with Taurus and with Aldebaran, we're going to be talking about how these four stars are connected to the deeper cosmos. And Aldebaran and Taurus are in what's considered this, they're in this part of the Milky Way band that's seen in winter in the northern hemisphere, which would be summer in the southern hemisphere. And so it's really almost directly opposite the galactic center. And so it's this energy that's even holding the space for the galactic core or the heart of our Milky Way galaxy. Taurus is holding this energy of this. And what I love about this interplay between oppositions almost in astrology, especially because when we see where Taurus is holding this energy of what's considered the anti-galactic center or the opposite point to the galactic center on the other side of the sky, is in astrology, usually oppositions are considered really tense aspects. There's a lot of war, there can be a lot of back and forth, there could be a lot of battle and conflict between oppositions in astrology, as it's usually determined in the mainstream. But I realized because oppositions are actually my most prominent aspect in my chart, and I can totally relate to the back and forth battle conflict aspect of it. But I realized that It's actually really in the opposition where we find the complement of each other. And then also that's where we get to come face to face with something. Because when we're actually sitting opposite someone, we come face to face with and we can actually see what's happening. So the eye of the bull actually is looking right at the galactic center.
Well, and what's so beautiful about that is that it's also really, again, from that understanding of the medicine wheel, when we come to center, we integrate the dualities, we integrate
Yes.
the polarities, we take the best of both and bring them into unity consciousness rather than they're being caught in separation and conflict with each other. So that's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So that is the energy of what really came through when I started to work with those names of this particular star. And yeah, so should I move on to the next star if that's okay? Or is there anything that you would like to add about?
The only thing I would
Yeah.
add is that I think it's interesting too, as you and I were talking before we got on the recording, that Orion is right there,
Yes.
opposite the galactic center, and it's opposite Ophiuchus,
Mm. Mhm.
which I really see those 13 and 14th constellations on the zodiac
Mhm.
as about our journey through the processional cycle, with
Mhm.
Orion being that journey of our evolution of consciousness as humanity, and Ophiuchus, who we are in our wholeness.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that Aldebaran is right there and often associated, if Orion is associated with Osiris,
Mhm.
Taurus is associated with Horus,
Wow.
who, as Orion sinks below the horizon, Taurus is there. So I think there's something about Taurus and Aldebaran about, are we living with our integrity? Are we coming into enlightenment
Yeah.
as we gaze at the galactic center,
Mm.
align with Ophiuchus?
Wow. I love
So
that.
it's really powerful, that
Yeah.
opposition in the sky.
Wow. Yes. And I love this visual I received right as soon as you said, oh, the Orion's belt is really kind of helping kind of weave our way through the processional cycle. Because what came to me was in Tonga, the way they view the three stars of Orion's belt, they consider it the three paddlers of Hina. And Hina is the goddess of the moon. And so they see the three stars as paddlers in a canoe.
Yeah.
And so I love that this is even connecting, even being able to navigate through these huge cycles of time with these stars. And so we can even envision ourselves as one of the three paddlers in the canoe and really trusting our own ability to navigate the seas that we're in. We can see that with Orion as well.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Thank you for adding that as well. Oh, and one more thing too. I thought it was so fascinating that Haumea is being connected in with the bull in Taurus, because Taurus, even astrologically, is connected to fertility and the earth. And Haumea is a Mother Earth goddess as well. And so I thought that was so interesting, because even then we can see that as Aldebaran or Almea is the eye of Haumea. We can even see it as the eye of the mother goddess as well.
Which is interesting too, because Taurus was that final age of honoring the sacred feminine, the age of Taurus,
Mm.
as we were
Wow.
into the Kali Yuga and the time of forgetting and separation.
Wow.
So much of what you're saying, including the three paddlers honoring the moon goddess,
Mhm.
it's also about the importance of reclaiming that sacred feminine
Yeah.
wisdom.
I love that. And I love that you're bringing in the divine feminine, because I feel like we can find that through the four stars, and the themes of the four stars that we'll be talking about today is remembering the divine feminine and honoring her in her divine relationship to the masculine too.
Great.
Okay. All right. So now, if it's okay, if I go to Antares in Scorpius. Now I have a
Perfect.
lot of, yes, yeah. So now I have a lot of information about Scorpius and Antares, more than all of the other ones combined, because Scorpius, as we've talked about before, Scorpius has been really integral to my own journey of remembrance and awakening, and because Scorpius is seen as Maui's fishhook constellation in Polynesia. And it was really hugely connected to mythology and also actually wayfinding on the open seas. And so it's so interesting because I used to actually fear this particular constellation. When I would take my dog out at like 2 or 3 in the morning when Scorpius was really high in the southern skies, I felt like it was like a visceral like fear. I didn't even want to look at it because they just felt like just so much fear coming up with Scorpius. And I don't know if it's partly because it's defined with Scorpio in astrology, where it's considered, the sign that's connected to death and rebirth and facing your shadow and confronting the things in your own underworld, which totally I feel like that could be part of it. But also, I didn't know its connection to Polynesian culture until much later, until a couple years in. And when I found out that Scorpius is actually considered Maui's fishhook in the Polynesian perspective, that activated my origins in a whole new way because I had felt disconnected from my origins, from my Samoan sides particularly, for most of my life. And so I realized that coming into remembrance and actually no longer fearing Scorpius was a testament to actually me no longer fearing my origins or even fearing or feeling worthy enough to claim my origins. So Scorpius has very much been a guiding light for me as well. And so with that, the Antares is considered the watcher or the guardian of the West. And so Antares is Greek for rival of Aries. And I think even Aries can be considered Mars in Greek, in the Roman Greek equivalent. And I thought perhaps that Antares was named that because it glows red in the sky, which can actually mirror the glowing red of Mars, the planet. So I thought that maybe there was an association there. But also, it's really kind of locking Antares and Scorpius into the god of war aspect of being a rival or in competition with the god of war. um, and what I loved about the Hawaiian name of Antares is that it's bringing in a whole other energy. And so the Hawaiian name for Antares is Lehua Kona, and Lehua Kona means the southern lehua blossom or flower. And if you've seen the flower Ohia lehua, specifically, I would even say I think it's endemic throughout the Hawaiian Islands, but it's particularly on the Big Island of Hawaii. If they're the Big Island is huge, has huge lava fields, and these lava fields are like black as pitch, right? And when you start to see these little pops of color everywhere, though, which Ohia lehua comes in a lot of different colors, but there is one that is really bright red. And this is where you start to see these pops of red. And so when I found out that Antares is called Lehua Kona, I even imagined when I look up at Antares that the sky is the black lava pitch, and Antares is actually the Lehua Kona flower in the sky.
Beautiful.
Yes, and there is this connection too to even like a destruction and rebirth because the lava fields kind of take out a lot of what was there, or it's even creating new land. And when you're looking at it, a fresh lava field as well, it just kind of looks pretty desolate. But Ohia lehua is the first plant to grow back out of the lava fields. And so where it looks barren, it's not. And Ohia lehua is the reminder of that. And so I thought, yes, sorry.
Such a beautiful image. I was just in Hawaii a few months ago, and that's exactly what I saw. And I loved that. I became so fascinated with those red flowers growing out of the lava fields. And it is so reflective of Scorpius being about death, rebirth. And, in Greek mythology, it gets labeled as about war and conflict and anti-Aries,
Right.
Antares. But
Yeah.
it's really about, can we trust that journey of death, rebirth, and
Yeah.
way it is that alchemical process of finding the true gold of who we are. And then it's about the true meaning of power and going into the depths, not power over or conflict, but
Mhm.
empowerment.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing. And I love too that even Lehua, Ohia Lehua is a reminder that we don't have to be at war when we're going through our own underworld journeys, especially the wars within, and we can actually put our weapons down when we're traversing our own underworld. She's this reminder of that. And she also is connected to the goddess Pele as well, mythologically. And Pele is the volcano goddess of Hawaii. And she also has this connection to death and rebirth. And we can find that in Scorpius as well, even just in the tropical way of looking at Scorpio and Scorpius too. And then also what's really fascinating is Antares being connected to the Watcher or the Guardian of the West. So the Tongan name, so Tonga is an island nation in the South Pacific in Polynesia, and their name, the Tongan name for Antares is Fonuakula, which means red land, which I thought was so fascinating because it's a red star. And this name is actually a variation of Fanuakula, which is another name for Pulotu, which is the Tongan ancestral homeland. And so there is this connection to the West and ancestors as well. And we can find this in the Tongan way of looking at this star. And I also thought it was interesting because this is weaving in Samoa as well. So Pulotu is also the ancestral realm in Samoa as well. And there is this myth that comes from a village on the westernmost part of this westernmost island in Samoa. And it's said to be the gateway to Pulotu in the West. And so it's even connecting, it's almost like Antares and Scorpius or Maui's fishhook is even this gateway holder of the ancestral realm throughout the Polynesian islands and the way that they look at these stars and the way they interact even with the direction of west. So I thought that was interesting as well.
Interesting how so many cultures see the West as that gateway to the other realms, the gateway to the ancestors, the gateway to the spirit realm.
Yes.
In ancient Egypt, they didn't have a term, really ancient Egypt, they didn't have a term for death. It was westing.
Oh, amazing. It's incredible. I didn't know that. Wow. I'm going to start using that. That's amazing. And also with Antares being connected to the ancestor realms, this is throughout Polynesia and also throughout cultures. It's also connecting into this very interesting myth that's found in Rapa Nui or Easter Island. And the reason why I found this so fascinating is because Antares is a zenith star. So zenith stars are the stars that reach their highest point in the sky before they set. And when they reach their highest point, they can reach it over certain islands, certain landmarks, certain cities. And I feel like zenith stars are so important because it's connecting the cosmos or that particular star into the land that it's reaching its highest point over. And so the zenith star for, so the Antares is the zenith star for Rapa Nui. And I think it's the southeasternmost point of the Polynesian Triangle. And what I found so fascinating is that another name that the indigenous people of Rapa Nui call Rapa Nui is Te Pito o Te Henua, which means the umbilical cord of the world. And so with Antares or with Lehua Kona or even Fanuakula being connected into the umbilical cord of the world, this is connecting in with your ancestral lineage in a whole other way as well.
That is so incredible because it's also so close to the galactic center.
Yes.
So it's really about that birthplace of all that is,
Mm-hmm.
as well as that ancestral lineage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you brought in, that it's that Antares and Scorpius is so close to the galactic center, because if something's reaching its zenith, that's the highest point in the sky. So when you're actually in Rapa Nui or Te Pito o Te Henua and you look up at the sky and you can see the Milky Way band, it's straight across the sky. And it's like anchoring in not only the energy of Antares, but also the galactic center. Yeah. Which is the heart of the Milky Way galaxy. So this is like connecting the pico or the navel or your umbilical cord to the heart to the galaxy.
as you and I were talking about before, right above Scorpius is Ophiuchus,
Yes.
the serpent
Mhm.
bearer,
Yeah.
symbolizing the integration of the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine coming into wholeness. So that part of the sky is so powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah.
It's really guiding us
Yeah.
how to remember who we are
Yeah.
and come back home to our true selves.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And if you have seen pictures even of the Moai, the huge stone heads on Rapa Nui, and so many astrophotographers go and take pictures of the Milky Way band over Rapa Nui. So they have pictures of these huge stone heads and the galactic center and the huge Milky Way bands right over it. It's quite stunning to see and to feel into. And even from people that I know who have been to the island, they say it's the most otherworldly feeling that they've ever been to on this particular island. So there's something there, definitely, in this landmark in the Pacific. And I wonder how much of it's connected to its really potent connection to the cosmos.
I think that's so important. I don't know if you know Mark Vidler's book Star Mirror, but he
Mhm.
talks about the synchronicity as above, so below, these alignments of
Yeah.
particular places on the earth and these star configurations.
Yes.
It seems like they were very tuned into those energies that were
Mhm.
coming to them because of being right under the galactic center.
Yes. Yes. And there is even so just kind of furthering our discussion a little bit on zenith stars. So the Hawaiian word for zenith star is Hokupa'a o Ka'aina, which means the star that adheres to land. And what I loved about this too is Hokupa'a is one of the names for the North Star for our Polaris. And what I loved about that is it's almost like then every zenith star that rises over certain landmarks is its own personal North Star.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And so even just looking and knowing the zenith stars for your area could be very, very interesting just to see what type of energy is coming through with that as well. And I feel like zenith stars all talk to each other as well. And this particular myth of Te Pito o Te Henua, or the umbilical cord of the earth, is actually mythologically connecting the island of Maui in Hawaii to Rapa Nui and then to Moorea, which is an island in Tahiti. And each of these islands that are in this myth all have their own zenith stars. And so the zenith star of Hawaii is Hokulea or Arcturus, which is connecting into Antares, which is the zenith star of Rapa Nui. And then you go to Tahiti, and the zenith star is Sirius. So it's weaving these zenith stars or these own like personal north stars for these islands, even in a really beautiful way.
And reminding us of the interconnectedness of the earth and sky.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just so grateful to people who share their connections to these myths and things, because it's even weaving in, the migration of people, but also the connecting in the cosmos in a really deep way. So I'm just really grateful for people who share these myths that would have otherwise been forgotten or hidden for who knows how long. It's all coming out now. Yes.
Well, and I think as you and I've talked about, those ancient cultures are so reminding us how to come
Yes.
into those connections between the earth and sky, how to come back into right relationship with these energies, to remember who we really are.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that is the Antares Scorpius royal star. And then
Yes.
we're going to guide right into Regulus and Leo, if that's okay. So Regulus is considered the watcher or guardian of the North. And so Regulus has been said that it's Latin for little king. And but when you actually look at the etymology of Regulus, it actually shows that it means to lead or to rule. And so what I love about that though is usually Leo is considered, the royal like sign. It's very connected to kings and queens and royalty in that way. But I love that even just Regulus just means to lead to rule. So we don't even have to look to a king or to a queen or to an authority outside of ourselves. It's actually an invitation to come back within and lead from within. And not up from just any place. Regulus is the heart of Leo. So it's even just leading and ruling from your heart, which I thought was a really beautiful connection.
Well, and so important in that its deeper meaning then is how are we leading from that way that we're of service to the people and coming from the heart.
Yep.
And in the legends about it as leadership,
Mm-hmm.
each royal star was said to have its challenge. And the challenge with Regulus was if you were leading from ego, from pride, or from revenge, it would lead to your downfall.
Ah,
So it needed to be in right alignment to
yeah.
be coming from the heart.
Yeah. And I love that that kind of weaves even back in with Taurus and Aldebaran with leading with integrity and leading from the sacredness of your own fire and being connected in with that as well. And the Hawaiian name is really interesting. I had to dig for this particular name. I couldn't find it anywhere. And so when I found it, it was so fascinating because a lot of the Polynesian names for stars are still coming back online because a lot of it had been forgotten for so long. And so I'm so grateful to books like Not Ino Hoku that are offering this information out. So there were only a few names that I could find for Regulus, which I thought was so fascinating because it's a pretty important star. And so I feel like there's going to be more information that comes out about Regulus as well. But the name that I was able to find for the Hawaiian name for Regulus is Iki Iki. And Iki Iki, so Iki just means small or little, which I thought was interesting because maybe that could be in correlation to Little King. But I looked up Iki Iki in the Hawaiian dictionary, and Iki Iki actually means discomfort, grief, or pain. And so I was like, huh, what is that? And that's really fascinating to me. And then that actually cued something that I learned from Keoni as well. And so as you know, and probably your audience knows too, and is familiar with his work, he works with the ferns. And there's 103 ferns that correlate to 103 human emotions. And one of those emotions is divine pain. And so it's interesting because the plant that's connected to divine pain is Ohialehua, which is the name for Antares, which is in Scorpius. So how he translates pain is about sensation, and it's about coming out of numbness. And I thought that was so interesting and so actually important because if we are to lead or we are to lead our own lives and also really guide ourselves into this next level of up leveling and consciousness, we have to make sure that we're actually feeling, and we have to make sure that we're coming out of, or we're actually even facing our discomfort or our grief or our pain. And there's like a thawing happening. And so Iki Iki, I feel like, is even reminding us that to actually feel is to be organic and to be human. And so I feel like Iki Iki with Leo is so important because it's that energy that's helping to support Aquarius, the Aquarius energy, which can really kind of go into the technology of things and the AI of things. And so Iki Iki is almost this reminder of to revere and honor the organic experience.
It is so interesting. That's such a really good point. And maybe there's another aspect to that.
Mhm,
Isn't that fascinating, that
mhm.
association with pain or
Yeah,
suffering or
yeah,
divine pain.
yes.
Because what's interesting is in the correlation of the Yuga cycle and the precessional cycle, it's the age of Leo when we start to move from that time of the golden age of enlightenment now into the descending cycle.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's also the point at which we start to feel that divine pain of moving into forgetting, of
Ah,
into the beginning
yeah,
of separating from source.
yes.
So
Wow.
there's also
Yeah,
that sorrow, that
yeah.
realization that we're now
Mm,
that part of the descending
right.
cycle of
Yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah. And if we start to fear the grief or if we start to fear the pain, I feel like it increases the forgetting and it actually amplifies it and it makes it move at warp speed. So how can we actually make friends with the the things that are uncomfortable too. I feel like is what this name for this star is also incorporating. And I also would love to share too that these names that I'm sharing in Hawaiian is a spectacular language, as is the Polynesian languages, because there's deeper meanings even to the deeper meanings of these stars. So I'm sure there's actually even a deeper meaning of iki iki, but that is the definition that I was able to find in the Hawaiian dictionary. And so what I loved about this too is if we're looking at just the three stars that we've already talked about, so Aldebaran being connected to Haumea and also Sacred Fire, it's connecting into birth and creation. And then we go into Antares and Scorpio, which is deeply connected to ancestry and lineage. And then we go into Regulus and Leo, and it's this reminder to revere organic life and revere the organic life cycle as well. So the birth and death, and then coming into this afterlife aspect as well. So honoring it all.
Beautiful. And to hold everything with your heart.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that is Regulus and Leo. And then, also the cosmic aspect of Leo and where Leo is located in the sky. So Leo is, if you're actually looking at where Leo's located on star maps, it's actually connected into what's called the North Galactic Pole. So just like how the Earth has a North Pole and a South Pole, our galaxy also has a North Pole and a South Pole. And essentially what it is, it's this invisible line that astronomers were able to mathematically calculate so that we can, so that astronomers are able to locate other stars, nebulas, planets, all these things in our galaxies. And so Regulus is really honing in on the North Galactic Pole. And so if you're actually looking in that area of the sky, and if you actually have technology to see deeper into that part of the sky, you can see into the deeper cosmos. So that's where astronomers are able to like put their telescopes and see into what's actually called the realm of galaxies. I found that actually on a star map. And it's I think you're able to see into the deeper cosmos in this area of the sky because of its unique positioning in our Milky Way, because it's not being obstructed by, our galactic core because it has all of its own light. So you're able to see into the darker areas of our Milky Way band and see farther out into space.
Amazing if you think about how it is representing our connection to the heart. And it's only through our hearts that we can connect to the unified field of all consciousness, to that expansive awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you brought back into coming back to center because, all of these stars are showing that we have these access points now with the technology and things to be able to go out into deeper space, either by visually seeing it or even sending rockets and space explorer things out into the deeper cosmos. But again, the big important message from these stars was as far as you go out into the cosmos, remember to come back home and come back to center and come back to your body and this planet.
And as we connect to that unity consciousness, we realize we can go out there, but it's all in here.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. We don't even have to leave our chairs in our office to connect into the realm of galaxies. We can really just even close our eyes and connect, which is pretty amazing. Okay, so now moving into, oh my goodness, Fomalhaut. Okay, thank you, Fomalhaut. So I actually have one slide for this. So Fomalhaut is a very interesting star because as we were speaking before we got on the call, it's the only star out of the four royal stars that's not in a constellation that's on the actual ecliptic or the path of the sun. And it's so interesting though because of its location in the sky that it's actually connecting in with the Aquarius constellation, but it's actually connecting in with the Aquarius constellation from the southern hemisphere because Fomalhaut is the alpha star in Pisces Austrinus, which means the southern fish. And so it's below the equator. And so I have a slide for that just to show really quickly where that is located or what that looks like. Okay, so this is a screenshot from Stellarium that I took this morning. And as you can see here, this is Fomalhaut. Right here is and Fomalhaut is, I believe it's Arabic for mouth of the fish. I also saw a translation to mouth of the whale as well, which I thought was interesting. And so as you can see here, there is a deep connection, even though it's considered to be in the southern hemisphere, you can see which constellation on the ecliptic it's deeply connected to, and it's Aquarius. And not only that, as you can see here, the Aquarian waters can actually seem to be flowing toward the mouth of this southern fish constellation. And this is a really important star and also a really important constellation because of the age of Aquarius that we're entering into. And I also thought it was so interesting that Pisces Austrinus can also be considered or connected to Pisces, because Pisces is the two fish on the ecliptic. And then this is the southern fish, though. That's like, it's almost like a weaving of the Piscean age and the Aquarian age in just this constellation and this star.
Beautiful. And I love that image of the water bearer, which I always see as the living energies and wisdom of the cosmos coming into the mouth of the fish, guiding us in how to absorb that wisdom as we're moving into this new age.
Yes, yes. And actually, because I have this image up already, I'll just mention that just like how Aldebaran, Antares, and Regulus are all connected to these deeper aspects of the cosmos, to either the galactic center, anti-galactic center, or the North Galactic Pole, the Fomalhaut is, and Pisces Austrinus is a constellation that is triangulating the South Galactic Pole. So the South Galactic Pole is actually found in this constellation in Sculptor. And I actually see Fomalhaut working with actually these other constellations around it to triangulate Sculptor, because Sculptor is made up of dim stars, so it's really hard to see with the naked eye. But these other stars that are surrounding it are almost like triangulating where we can actually see the South Galactic Pole. And those other stars are actually from Anka and Phoenix. And then Deneb Kaitos, which is considered the southern tip of the whale or something like that. It's connected to the Cetus constellation, the whale. And so it's like all honing in on the South Galactic Pole. So here's the last star connecting in with the cosmos in a deep way. And I feel like how in with the South Galactic Pole, if we look in that direction, we can see into the realm of galaxies in the northern part of our galaxy. And I feel like in the Sculptor constellation, we can see the galaxies beyond in the southern hemisphere. So we can look into the deeper cosmos from the south as well. So it's even these realms of galaxies that are being held at the poles of our galaxy too.
Weaving the south and the north into oneness, into whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love too that this is all in the part of the sky called the waters. So it's really reminding us of our connection with source.
Yes.
Source of life here on Earth.
Yep. Yep. And also water is connected to memory. Yes. So even coming into your remembrance of yourself and why we're here. Okay. So let me stop share. Okay. So the Hawaiian name for Fomalhaut is Kukani Loko. And this was a really interesting find because ku, kani, and loko are three distinct words in the Hawaiian language. And ku means to stand or to rise. Kani means sound or resonance. And loko, it means inside or within. And so the definition that I saw online said it was to anchor the cry from within. But I realized another way you can translate this is to anchor the resonance within. And there's this resonance is defined as quality of sound of being deep or full, and then it's able to reverberate out. And Aquarius is so interesting because yes, it's connected to water, but I also think it's connected to frequency and to sound. And so this star and it being connected in the Hawaiian language to the resonance within, it's like even your own unique resonance and sound and being able to share it out, I thought was really profound.
It's mind-blowing because, some of the ancient symbolism for Fomalhaut is connecting to the visionary, connecting to the mystic, connecting to, that wisdom of the cosmos, which when we really remember that everything is energy, everything is vibration. So what you're talking about is, can we connect our own soul song with the harmony of the spheres? Do we
Yeah.
hear that wisdom and song of the cosmos and then find our own voice and expression as part of that? That is beautiful.
And even the location of where this star is. So it's considered a lonely star because it's a really bright star in a seemingly dark part of the sky. There's really no other bright stars around it. It's like this solitary, really bright star. And so what I had visualized was, why would we play small or keep our resonance within when we have all of this space to share it out? And this was also really interesting because Kukani Loko is actually a name for a sacred site on the island of Oahu. And it was seen as actually a sacred site where in ancient Hawaii where chiefs and ali'i were born. And so to anchor the cry within, I think was actually connecting in with the whole process of birth too. And so even the cry of the children when they come earthside too, of being able to share that resonance out. And so also Kukani Loko, where it's located, it's said to be on the pico of Oahu, so the navel of Oahu. So here we go back to the pico, just like Te Pito o Te Henua with Antares and being the umbilical cord of the world. Kukani Loko is a sacred site that's even considered the pico or the navel of Oahu itself. So here we go again, like even weaving in birth and creation and organic life and the pico in this star as well. And then also I just loved that this star is going to be just increasingly more important as we move more into the Aquarian age, because even with to anchor the resonance within, and also Aquarius being connected to authenticity and your own unique sound. This is really an invitation to be sure and be aware of the sound that you're anchoring. Be sure that it's your own. So that when you're reverberating, when you're sharing your frequency out, it's your own unique frequency and it's not emanating anyone else, because we need your resonance to join in with the harmony of what we're experiencing.
That is so beautiful. It's so powerful when you begin to get the layers of meaning of these different stars, because I'm also thinking, I'd never realized that before until you described it, that Fomalhaut is surrounded by the darkness of the sky. It's not a part of a brighter constellation. And you and I were in the hemispheres group. We talked about how in the southern hemisphere, they often see the constellations as the darkness between the stars. So there's this understanding of the wisdom of the dark in the southern hemisphere that Fomalhaut is holding. Also, Regulus, Leo, opposite in the sky, is so associated with the light of the sun.
Yes.
And here you have the light of the sun, but the wisdom of the dark. Bring them into oneness.
Yes.
So it's all about uniting these different energies of the four directions and the energies that they represent in opposition with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. And I also love too that it's the mouth of the fish or the mouth of the whale, because when we share our frequency out, it can come in. I mean, we don't even really have to do anything. We can just be, and our frequency can radiate. But another way that we can express it is through voice, is through singing, is through chanting, is through any sort of expression that feels good to you. And I loved this kind of imagery where sometimes people get kind of like a little caught up with perfectionism of like, oh no, I don't want to say that thing, or I don't want to chant, or I don't want to sing my song, because we can get perfectionistic about it. But I had read somewhere that birds don't sing because they are professionally trained or because they're putting on the show. They sing because they have a song to share. And so that's like this star and this constellation, and also this Aquarian age is like, do you have a song to share? And why would you stop yourself from singing it?
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And to also remember that as we sing that song and we're coming from the heart, we're emanating that into the collective consciousness that's also supporting the shift, the healing, the awakening that we're all in as we're moving into this Aquarian age, coming out of the Kali Yuga into a time of higher consciousness. And it is interesting, as you and I were talking about, that these fixed stars in their relationship with those constellations are all at the critical turning points of the
Mhm.
precessional cycle. So they're also marking these shifts in our evolution of consciousness, but reminding us to keep coming back to source, keep coming back to center, keep coming back to wholeness.
Yeah, totally agree. And what a time to be here in this huge shift. And I also got a download, I think it was last year, that a lot of us on the planet, I feel like, have been or have already experienced lifetimes of a shift, of a big, massive shift on, it doesn't even have to be this planet. If you believe in like life on other planets, you could have experienced a different galaxy. But I feel like a lot of souls incarnated this lifetime to help with the shift of that we're experiencing because they've been here before and they've done it before. And they can help with the movement of or the navigation through these times that we're in. So really trust yourself and trust your own knowing on how to navigate this. Because I feel like on a deeper level, we already know how. We're just remembering.
And again, the importance of holding that remembrance
Yeah.
and emanating it, because then we're helping everyone in this co-creation of a new world together and an awakening. But I love too that you keep focusing on that meaning of coming to center, because then we can come out of the storm and the turbulence of this transition time, come back into that alignment with all these energies. Remember that we're in this journey, but we're held and guided by these guardians of the four directions that are teaching us how to move through this time of shift.
And it's like an ultimate support. It's like our support group as we move through these times of shifting and changing. And actually, just before I forget, is it okay if I actually bring in the double arch Milky Way really quickly before?
Yeah.
Okay. So this I actually didn't know this existed or that this could actually happen until last month. So I follow a lot of astrophotographers online. I have a deep love of astrophotography because these are the people that are going out and taking pictures of what we're talking about of the sky. And it's really beautiful to be able to see these images and just kind of see what it evokes in you as well. And so I came across this image from this photographer where there is a certain, it's a kind of a rare phenomenon, and it only happens a very, very narrow window of time during the year, where you can see what's called the winter Milky Way and the summer Milky Way within a few hours at one night. And what the winter Milky Way is, this is all from the Northern Hemisphere perspective, when I saw it described. So the summer Milky Way would be considered the Milky Way band we can see in the summertime in the Northern Hemisphere, which would be winter in the Southern Hemisphere. And then the winter Milky Way is what we can see in the wintertime in the Northern Hemisphere and in the summer in the Southern Hemisphere. And so basically, we usually just see them in these prolonged amount of time during a whole seasonal shift. But there's a really specific short window of time during the year where we can see both bands in a span of like 2 to 3 hours. And astrophotographers have actually now gone out and taken photos of both of these bands that you can see, and they've merged their pictures side by side so you can actually see the double Milky Way arch, is what it's called. And there is, oh man, I'm forgetting his name, but there's an astrophotographer who I think he was one of the first to go out and really take a picture of this and then have it kind of go viral online. And he named his work The Eyes of the Universe, which I loved because when you look at this image, you can see both Milky Way bands, which create the top parts of the eyes. And then you see the landscape underneath, which creates the bottom part of the eyes. So it's almost like the universe is looking directly at us through his image. And the reason why this is so important is because two of the four royal stars are in the Milky Way bands. So we have Antares and Scorpius in what's considered the summer Milky Way band in the Northern Hemisphere. And then we have Aldebaran and Taurus in the winter Milky Way band in the Northern Hemisphere. And so that's just even including to the 4 stars that we were talking about today. And then also just to bring in your work with Bibu Dev Misra, he had mentioned or said in his work that the end of the Kali Yuga happens March 21st, 2025, which I think is so profound, especially in regards to the double arch Milky Way, because the best time to have taken a photo of the double arch Milky Way this year was that week of March 21st, 2025. And it's like this merging of seasons, which we usually experience over long spans of time, but they met in like a really short span of time, right at this ending of this time of forgetting. And so it's now like the eyes of the universe are like, okay, time to open your eyes and wake up.
You know, it's extraordinary when you think about how the cosmos is trying to guide us into our awakening with these exquisite, beautiful messages from the earth and sky. It's such a reminder to all of us that we are held, we are guided, we are loved and supported as we're moving through this turbulent transition time, but that it is a time of death, rebirth into new ways of being.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for bringing us the wisdom of these stars and this medicine wheel in the sky that's guiding us how to come back to center and remember who we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's always such an honor to be in conversation with you. And it's just an honor to bring in the Polynesian aspect of the stars and interacting with the stars. And I have deep reverence and deep respect for all cultures on how they look at the stars. And like we were describing and talking about before we got on the call, everyone has ancestry that connects in with the sky. Every single one of us has ancestors who have worked with the sky in some way. And so I feel like in this time of remembering that we're coming back into is remembering that we have our own connections to the sky and to the way we can have a relationship with it. And so I really am so excited because this, I feel like, is an invitation to connect back in with the sky in our own way.
Well said. And I also think it is so beautiful that we're getting more of this wisdom from ancient cultures coming back into our remembrance in this time because they knew how to live in harmony and in that interconnectedness of the earth and sky. So they're helping us find our way back to right relationship with the sacredness of all of life. Thank you. And blessings and love to all of you listening. Thank you.